We're being joined now by Kansas U.S. Senator Jerry Moran. Well, Senator, here we are in the waning days of the August break. You yet again traveling around the state. What are you hearing from constituents?
You know, Ken, I think there's just a theme. First of all, most people don't come to me and say, I need something from government. In fact, what they come to talk about is they're worried about the future of their country. They're worried about what's going on in Washington, D.C. and what it means to their kids and grandkids. So there's a great amount of concern. Some people have fear about the future, and they see Washington, D.C.'s inability, unwillingness to come together and solve any problems. So there's a real sense of frustration. They're just fed up with what's going on in the nation's capital.
A lot of things let's get to. First is that regulation and what many people see overregulating of agriculture. This is not something new, but it seems like some of the tactics, especially by the Environmental Protection Agency, really harmful to agriculture.
Absolutely. You know, what's in a farm bill is important. Trade policy is important. But in my view, the greatest threat to production agriculture, to family agriculture across the Midwest, is the regulatory mess that's coming our way from Washington, D.C. And it's the EPA, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Army Corps of Engineers, the junk that gets in the way, and the belief that in Washington, D.C. that one-size solution can fit all problems. Here in Kansas, you would put waters of the United States, navigable waters front and center, concern about what the EPA, despite their assurances, what's really going to happen. And then a real problem with the potential listing of the lesser prairie chicken. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is headed down a path that is very detrimental to rural America. For those of us who produce oil and gas in our states, the production of electricity, rural electric cooperatives, but especially production of agriculture and the land management practices, the setting aside of habitat, those are things that are going to be real problems for agriculture. And in my view, the greatest threat we face, and what we want is sound science and some common sense. And in all of these instances, that's missing. We'll
talk more water in just a little bit, but I guess just first, the EPA, is that an agency that can be trusted?
You know, no. I mean, the answer is no. Even if you believe that when the EPA says even though we're going to change the definition of navigable waters, that we're not going to change anything about what agriculture producers are doing today, even if you believe that, which I don't, but then what happens when some environmental organization files suit to try to force the EPA to do more? What seems to happen so often is an agreement is reached outside of court between the EPA and an environmental organization. A judge approves that agreement, and then when I go complain to the EPA, they say we have no choice. We're under a judge's directive.
We are talking with the U.S. Senator Jerry Moran. We'll have more in just a moment. You're watching kansasAGreport.
This segment brought to you by Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. Farmers Insurance, your best protection against the unexpected. Call Agent Dan Key at 785-408-5459. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. GrassandGrain.com. Blue River Traders, the finest selection of Western-style furniture for your home. BlueRiverTraders.com.
We're being joined by Kansas United States Senator Jerry Moran. We've been talking about the waters of the United States, the proposal from the Environmental Protection Agency on changing maybe the definition of what that all means. Senator, you know, this is wide-ranging, not only agriculture, but industry, even golf courses, and some recreation folks are getting involved now.
Ken, this is huge. When the water law was passed in the 1960s, it restricted the activity of the federal government to navigable waters. And what the EPA is now saying is that anything that affects navigable waters is what we want to regulate. That's everything. That's every drop of rainfall. I come from Western Kansas. Water is important. We need quality and quantity. But we need common sense here, and we need local involvement as compared to some decision from on high in Washington, D.C. So this is a circumstance that is going to be very damaging to people's private property rights, but more, perhaps importantly, to their ability to earn a living on the land they own.
You bring up the phrase common sense. I think probably as you travel the state, people say, where is the common sense in Washington to stop things like this proposal?
You know, this is a very frustrating part of my job, particularly in Washington, D.C. these days. The Senate is not operating the way that it should, isn't operating the way that it has historically. And in fact, Senator Roberts and I have legislation, an amendment pending that has broad support, including from some Democrats. In fact, we think we might be able to win if we took a vote to rein in the EPA on this issue. But as a result of the fact that the outcome may be in our favor, the bill that we would amend, the appropriations bill for the Department of Interior, is not going to be considered by the Appropriations Committee or by the U.S. Senate. So in order to avoid, in my view, Democrat senators having to choose between President Obama's agenda and the wishes of their constituents back home, at least many of their constituents, we simply won't do the appropriation bill. And that's a terrible mistake, and great harm comes from that method of leading the Senate in which we want to avoid taking votes. That's very harmful to democracy in the United States and lends itself to this belief, rightfully so, that nothing's getting done in Washington, D.C.
Can that change?
Elections occur. Every 2 years there's an election. In fact, about a third of the United States Senate is up in November of this year. And a different majority means a different majority leader. And I have no doubt that if there's that change, if that change occurs, that we're back in business in which maybe we don't win every issue. Probably we don't. We're a minority, those of us who care about agriculture in rural America. But the opportunity to have the fight, to lay out the groundwork, to make the case, that's something that will occur. And every once in a while, we'll win a battle that's important to us.
We've been talking with Kansas U.S. Senator Jerry Moran. I'm Ken Rahjes for agview.net. You're watching Kansas Ag Report.
You can find us on the web at kansasAGreport.com and make sure to like us on Facebook.